On the back page of your outline, we're moving on that second side there. And as you see, we put a few lines for you to write down some ideas. So we're going to give you a bunch of illustrations and a bunch of ideas, but we recognize that when we get to the practical side of things, it really depends on the church. So we know we have many different churches represented here this afternoon, so we want you to apply it to you. We'll give you some illustrations. That illustration that we give may not apply to you. That's okay, but it may spark an idea of, oh, we should apply this like this in our church. Here are some things that we can think of. So while it's fresh in mind, just kind of write those ideas down. And then if there's a group of you from this that church together, I'd really recommend then you guys getting together sometime either after today, after we're done here, stay by for a few minutes and kind of share ideas, or schedule a time where you can get together and say, okay, we were there for a couple of hours that Sabbath afternoon. How do we want to implement all this concept in our church? We'll share with you kind of a basic idea of where to go and give you some illustrations of things that you can do. But so for this point on, it's less theology and philosophy and more practical application.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, as you are thinking about hospitality, again, we all have people we are praying for. We have people in our lives that we love dearly that don't know Jesus. Or maybe they know him in a little different way, but we want them to come to church. And maybe it's not this church. Maybe they live in a different state. How would you want that church to treat your loved one? And vice versa. Somebody in Ohio has a loved one that lives here in your town, and maybe they're going to come next week to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm sure that person is praying, Lord, help this church to love my person. And so just be thinking of that as we talk, okay? I want to share a story. A couple of dear gentlemen to my heart. When most of my career in physical therapy, I did home health. So I would go to people's homes and do physical therapy with them in their home, so they didn't have to go to a clinic. And I was working with this man named Dennis. Dennis is not shown here. I would go to see Dennis. He was in a wheelchair, and he had a roommate named Carl. And you see the man here is Carl. Dennis was very sweet. He was just very kind and sensitive. And then you had Carl, his roommate, who was like the complete opposite. So I would go, and Carl would answer the door, and he was gruff, and he was colorful with his language. He had like tattoos everywhere. He had a ring on every finger, and they were silver, and it was skull and crossbones. Very rough character. But he liked me because I was nice to Dennis, and I was helping Dennis. So Dennis and I, I was there 2 or 3 times a week, and I was doing physical therapy with him. And one time, spiritual things came up, and so I kind of paused on the PT, and we started talking about spiritual things and had prayer with him. And we were going to have an evangelistic series coming up, and I was like, Dennis, I really want you to come. And he was like, I want to come, but you got to talk to Carl, because that's my only way of getting there. So I talked to Carl, and Carl told me, he's like, I was raised a Methodist, but I don't have anything to do with God. I'm a Buddhist, and that's it. I was like, no problem. I just want Dennis to come to these meetings. And he was like, I'll bring Dennis, but I am not staying. No problem. Just get Dennis there. So he would bring Dennis to the evangelistic meetings, and I was one of the hosts. So I would stay out in the lobby, and I would bring Dennis down so he could have a seat. And I would stay out front with the other host, and Carl would just drop him off and leave and pick him up in about an hour. Well, as the meetings kind of went along, Carl would stay a little longer, and we would talk. And of course, he was so loud. I was like, oh, I hope people can't hear him in there. But we would talk, and pretty much by the end of all the meetings, he was almost staying the whole time. And so I got to know Carl pretty well and his backstory. So after the series, I was like, Dennis, I really want you to come to church. And he was like, I want to come to church, but you got to have Carl bring me. So I talked to Carl. Carl, will you bring Dennis? I'll bring him, but I am not staying for church. That's fine. You don't have to stay, just bring him. Well, at this church, it was a church plant, kind of another campus, we called it, called Tech Road. And we had like a seating area for hospitality. We had tables there, we had refreshments and drinks every Sabbath. And so, these two single men, and there's food involved. So Carl started kind of staying. And it was so funny because there was these 4 old guys and they would sit at the table. It was Dennis and Carl and 2 other old men. And they just had the best time. And then church would start, and Carl would leave, and I would wheel Dennis into the service, and then afterwards, Carl would pick him up. A lot of people didn't want to speak to Carl because, he's a little scary. I'll be honest, he was a little scary. But I started telling people, because their thing was, oh, we're so tolerant of people. No, you're not. You're not even speaking to Carl. And so I think you need to check yourself.
Andrea can be a little straightforward when she needs to be.
I can. Sometimes tact is not my best quality. But I was like, you say you're tolerant, but you won't even speak to this man, because he might have a different political opinion than you and might look a little scary. And so I kind of challenged them on it, and so they did. They started talking to him. And pretty soon, potluck would come once a month, and they both would stay because, again, food was involved. Food attracts. And they would both stay, and we would have different things, and if it involved food, those guys were there. But it wasn't just about the food. They started getting to know people. People started talking to him. First it was me, but then my hospitality team was great. They would talk because they knew if they didn't, they were going to be off the hospitality team. So they knew they better be talking to Carl and Dennis. And so they did. And people got to know them and warm up to Carl. And Carl started to kind of settle down too. But it was a real blessing. Unfortunately, during COVID, Dennis passed away. He didn't die of COVID, but he was in the hospital.
It was during COVID that he made his decision to join by profession of faith.
Yeah.
He would have been baptized, but he was
Right.
afraid of getting into the baptistry,
Yeah.
being
He
bound
was
to a
very-
wheelchair.
yeah, he was
So we
very-
were going to do a profession of faith
Yeah.
as soon as COVID got over.
Yeah, and then he passed away. It was really sad. But Carl and I kept in touch. Carl called me. We talked like once a month. He would call me. And one time he called me and he was like, Andrea, I need your prayers. Which that was like, wow, he needs my prayers as a Buddhist, And I'm like, how can I pray for you, Carl? And he's like, I'm going to have surgery and I'm scared. And I was like, and I prayed with him right there on the phone. I didn't say, I'm going to pray for you. I did it right then. I prayed with him. And God brought him through that surgery with flying colors. And he would come to church every once in a while.
Without Dennis.
Yeah, without Dennis, He never became a member, but he has a very positive feeling towards Seventh-day Adventists. Very positive. Yes, we still talk a couple times a year. He'll call or I'll call. We send Christmas cards. And so, it was just it's amazing how God is working on everybody. People that you wouldn't think of, they're working on. So it didn't just work on Dennis, it worked on Carl as well. So it's just, it's amazing what God is doing. I want to talk to you about the greeter ministry. Most first-time guests determine whether they're going to come back based on the friendliness of the church. This is far and away the most important factor in determining whether someone will come back or not. You can have amazing musicians, you can have amazing preaching, you can have excellence in your service, but if people don't talk to you, they're not going to come back. You can have mediocre service, mediocre musicians, just not very well. But if people are kind and friendly, people will definitely come back to your church. And again, God is drawing people that you love, people all over the United States. Their loved one lives here. They're going to be coming in. We need to prepare for our guests, whether we know them or we don't know them. But when you talk about the difference between a greeter and a host, it really doesn't matter, but I kind of want to explain, like...
It doesn't matter what you call.
It doesn't matter what you call. What matters is how you treat them. So I want to just talk to you. I'm going to give you an example. You could be Friday afternoon, you're getting ready for Sabbath, you're getting lunch prepared for the next day, things like this. The doorbell rings. You're not expecting anybody. You go to the door, there's a little Girl Scout, and she wants to sell you cookies. And of course, you're going to buy cookies.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thin Mints.
Yeah. Anything, really. And, yep. And so, yeah, you say, hi there, and she's like, oh, I want to sell you some cookies. And you're like, absolutely, let me get you some money. And you give them the money, you exchange the cookies and the money, and you say, thank you so much, have a great day, bye. You have greeted this person, you've been nice to this person, and they've gone on their way. That's greeting someone. A host is completely different. Let's say I'm going to have Eric and Anne Marie over. I want to have them over, and I say, Eric and Marie, I'd love to have you over next Sabbath. Will you come? They say, yes, wonderful. Any allergies? Do you have any allergies to food or just stuff you don't like? They tell me, okay, great. We're going to have you over. We're expecting them. I'm going to have a nice meal. I'm going to fix some nice things. Tim's going to fix some nice things. Our house is going to be clean. We're going to have our dogs on good behavior, hopefully. We're going to be ready for them. And when they ring the bell, I'm expecting them. We open the door. Please come into our home. Let me take your coat. We're going to talk to them. We might have other people there. We introduce them. We tell them a little bit about this person and this person so they can talk. We make sure they're comfortable. We make sure they're warm enough or cool enough. They have been hosted. We're expecting them. We should expect our guest. We shouldn't just greet them, hello, happy Sabbath, here's a bulletin, move on. We should be expecting them. Hi, we're so glad you're here. You don't have to say, obviously, we're expecting you, but welcome. Here, let me show you. The restroom is down here. Oh, you have little kids. Let me show you if you want to take them to class or if you want to stay in class with them. And the sanctuary is in here, and church starts in, 5 minutes. Oh, and today we're having potluck, and we're going to have it right over there in the Life Center, and we would love to have you. So immediately after church, just come on over. Oh, I didn't bring food. No problem. We have plenty of food. Don't worry. And, this afternoon, maybe we're going on a hike. We'd love to have you on a hike. So just, welcome them. Know that, you're expecting them. This is what's going to happen. Sit next to them. Sit, behind them or in front of them so that you can maybe talk to them before or after the service a little bit. It's a huge difference with your greeter ministry. And it is a ministry. It is not like, well, let's see, we have our elders and our deacons and our teachers, and, oh yeah, this person, they don't have anything to do in the church. Oh, let's just make them a greeter. No, your greeters are your first line. And they should be people who have a passion for this, who are not just going to be on their phones or talking with somebody else and not paying attention. It is a huge responsibility. It is a ministry of your church.
And really, the people serving on your greeter ministry, for years we abandoned the term greeter, and we called them hosts. But it became such a tradition that people couldn't get it. That was like, well, fine, call them greeters, but we were focused more on the attitude of hosting and just expecting guests and how we treat them, etc. But a huge, important ingredient in a good greeter ministry is training. Mm-hmm. They need, here's what the expectations are, here's what your responsibilities are, here's why we do what we do, here's how we do this kind of thing, etc. That more than just greeting people, because if there's not training, people connect with their friends and ignore the people that they don't know.
Yeah, we would have greeter training almost monthly. So important, because we were always recruiting new people, and a lot of people wanted to be on the hospitality team. We call it a hospitality team. This is really what it is. It's a team effort. And we were always training and recruiting, because this is such a vital part of the ministry.
When I was the ministerial director in the Pennsylvania conference, I would send a mystery guest to a random church every month. So the church did not know they were coming. Pastor didn't know they were coming. And this is an unchurched person that we would send to the church. They had this very extensive survey that they would do afterwards. There was training before they went as to here's why you're going, here's what we want you to look for, and then a survey they completed afterwards. We would give that complete survey to the pastor afterwards and say, recognize this is only one person on one day, so this isn't a full picture, so utilize this however you wish. If you recognize that the comments that this person made is legitimate, use this as a catalyst for change in your church. If it's like, yeah, it was just a bad day, then that's fine. Use it how you wish. But we kept, for 3 years, we did this. Every month for 3 years, we sent a unchurched mystery guest to a different Adventist church throughout the Pennsylvania Conference. And when we compiled all of the data from all of those churches over those 3 years, we found what Andrea said was absolutely true. Over and over again, the guest would say, I didn't understand what the preacher was saying. The person singing was off key. I was lost. I couldn't find my way. But the people were friendly, and I would come back. Others were like, oh, great music, great program, great message, but nobody talked to me. I'd never go back again. That was the lesson from that. It's not to say we shouldn't have good preaching or good other stuff too, of course. We'll talk about some of those other things. But being able to connect with people. People decide, am I going to come back? The answer to that question is, do I feel like I could belong here? And they will answer that question by, were people friendly to me? That's how that gets answered. Let me take a little bit of time to talk about the physical plant. Your physical plant does matter. When guests come, they don't know where things are. They don't know how to find things. When you go to a place for the first time, you notice certain things about the place. You go to, do y'all have a Buca de Beppo around here? Restaurant? Nobody ever been to a Buca de Beppo? Right? It's good. Sorry. It is like an experience. It's information overload, crazy. It's like there's no spare space on the wall. Pictures of anything and everything Italian everywhere. Buca de Beppo. It's a great food, by the way. It's just all family style. So if a group of 5 of you go, you get food for 5. Great salads and great pasta. Anyway, so sorry. But it's just like information. They even have, not that I'm promoting it, please do not take me out of context, a Pope room. It's like this huge table with a big, Pope in the middle of the table. It's really weird. So it's just like Italy on craziness. But when you go there a bunch of times, you don't even notice anymore. That's just the way that it is. That's just how it is. And when we go to church, to our church on a regular basis, we don't notice things anymore. That's just the way that it is. But a guest who comes the first time, all of their senses are activated. They smell every smell. They see everything. They hear everything. Right? It's constant. They get it. And when guests come to church, remember, our goal is not consumerism. Our goal is for them to connect with us so that they can connect with God. And we don't want anything to distract them from that. My associate pastor, he would often describe this, one of my associates would describe this as like a highway. And this highway is, to connect them to God. But there are all these off-ramps that will take people off from what God is desiring to do. We want to shut down as many off-ramps as we can. And the physical plant is one of those things. The physical plant is a way that people can be on that highway or off that highway, right? So using the senses. We are used to things a certain way. When something is out of place, you notice it's out of place. But when it's been out of place for 5 times, that's just where it belongs. Right? Let me illustrate it with a couple stories. A couple illustrations. First, let's just say, for the sake of illustration, that today I have my laptop over here, and let's just say for whatever reason I needed one of those orange extension cords. Right? 15, 20-foot extension cords. Right? There's not one over here, but let's say for the sake of illustration, I needed one today. Pastor or a deacon got that for me. I hooked it up. And when I finished today, I wound up that 15-foot extension cord, I don't know where it belongs, and I set it right here. For members of this church, when you come next Sabbath and worship begins, and you see this pile of this 15, 20-foot orange extension cord sitting up on the platform, you notice that doesn't belong there. And you're going to think, oh, you know what? Pastor Tim was here last week. He used that for his laptop. He had that crazy stuff going on. He used it. But whoever gave it to him is going to see it. They'll remove it, put it where it belongs, because you don't know where it belongs. You don't want to put it where somebody's going to miss it, so you leave it there. Second week you come, you notice it. Doesn't belong there. Somebody's still got to get that thing. Third week, yeah, I told you it was still going to be there. Fourth week, yep. Fifth week, you don't even notice it anymore. Why? Because that's where it belongs. That's its home. You don't even notice it anymore. You did it first when it was out of place, but now that it's been out of place 5 times, your mind just associates that's exactly the way that it is. So I was in Oklahoma teaching some students. It was a master's program class that I was teaching there to pastors, and I was teaching this, illustrating this point. And we were in a church fellowship hall. And instead of using the extension cord as an illustration, in this fellowship hall, on the side of the fellowship hall against the wall was a huge log. I mean, literal log, about this big around, maybe 8-10 foot long, just this log leaning up against the corner on the side of the room. So I used that as an illustration. And I said, let's just say for the sake of illustration that somebody, needed to use this log for some event that happened in here. So they brought the log in, did the illustration, but because they had to hurry up and get out of here and couldn't take however they got it, they just set it over there. So the next Sabbath when the group came in, they recognized that's not where it belongs. And 2, 3, 5 weeks, nobody notices it even more. So I use that as an illustration. Took a break from our class, all day teaching. Pastor comes up to me, he's like, "You're not going to believe this." I'm like, "What?" "I used to pastor in this church years ago. As an associate pastor, I brought that log in for a Pathfinder thing and forgot to take it out." Years later, people be cleaning around the log and it's still there, right? This is the same in everything, right? Went into one church, and as soon as you walk in the lobby, a huge giant stain right in the middle of the lobby. I went to the pastor, I'm like, "Whoa, what's this?" He's like, "Oh yeah, bad thing. We had heavy winds come through, moved the steeple, which was right above the lobby, and it leaked and dripped a lot of water in here, stained it. We have cleaned that carpet so many times." I'm like, "So what are you going to do about it?" He's like, "We're not going to do it. We don't even notice it anymore." Like, "Your guests do." It's like, "How about this? Why not get a round carpet, a rug that has like your logo on it, says welcome." Never thought about that, right? Went into another church. It was a church plant. So it was a church that was renting another facility. It was a dance studio that they were renting, big room. But it was being built still as a studio, and their bathroom was right like that door there. That was the bathroom. The only bathroom in the facility, right? Just a big room, like probably about this size, and that was the bathroom. But it did not, one bathroom, not men's there, women's there, just one bathroom, one toilet, one sink. And it did not have a doorknob on it. Nice. And so it would not lock. No lock on the inside. So they had a hanger, literal clothes hanger, that had a note on both sides, open and closed. And when you went in, you just turned it whether it was open or closed. And I remember thinking, what does open and closed mean? Does open mean you can come in? Does closed mean you can't come in? Does closed mean, I just wasn't sure. So I was watching that door, so that if I saw somebody go in, if I needed to go, I would only go after I saw someone come out. I wasn't going to question whether somebody was already in there, because what if somebody forgot to turn the hanger? Right? Now the church members, this is all normal. Wasn't an issue. They all knew the system. There was no problem. But guests, they'd be freaking out about it. I'm not gonna hold it. I actually had a colleague who was going to that church the week after I was there, and I alerted her, stop off somewhere on the way. She was so glad because there were people coming out of there and she never saw somebody going in. She just noticed the people coming out. Right? They went to another church, and in their basement, they had been flooded out in their basement. And so the pastor was taking me in to show me, and it smelled like mildew. I'm like, whoa, this smells bad. He's like, does it? He didn't notice the smell anymore. I mean, he knew it was bad. They were going to get some work done in there. So he turns the light on. I'm looking around, and I look, and they had this like big chandelier, but it was like a ball, big globe ball with a light bulb in the middle. And the bulb, the big ball, was 3/4 of the way filled with water, and the actual light bulb was submerged under the water. I'm like, Pastor, I'm not an electrician, but I'm pretty sure that's not safe. Oh, I hadn't noticed that. And that's just the reality of the way it is, right? So church members, when this is your home church, when you're regularly attending your church, there are certain things that you don't notice. You don't notice how the bathroom smells. You don't notice how loud the train is when it goes by. You don't notice the stains. You don't notice the carpet being really worn out. You don't notice things put out of place. You don't notice certain things. And it's important that you understand when a guest shows up, they see, they hear, they feel, they smell these things. And these things can be a distraction to what God is trying to do within their heart. When they feel like I got to go to the bathroom, but the bathroom really smells, they're thinking about that. They're thinking, can I hold it? And you want them thinking, what's God want to do in my life? You don't want that off ramp to them to be distracted towards that. So you want to think about those things. Another, let me illustrate this. This is a painting of the Kenhorst Seventh-day Adventist Church in Reading, Pennsylvania. This was our home church when I served as the ministerial director in Pennsylvania. And I think it's in the lobby or off to the side, one of the hallways, they have this painting. This painting was done, did I note the date on my notes? I did not. I think it was in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, this painting was done. So this painting is showing the artist's visual representation of the church at the time in which it was painted. So I just want to point a couple of things out for you. First, that you notice that people are parking on the street. And they're parking on the street because there is no other parking spaces. There is no parking lot. So everybody just parked on the street. And you see 2 red doors in the picture. So the first red door on the left, that goes right up into the sanctuary. It's like a door that's off to the side, on the side. The other red door right in the middle there under the steeple area, that goes into the lobby. So most everybody would go in those big red doors there. And you could see people walking up the sidewalk, and you see on the right side, people walking up the sidewalk but no car. Because people live down the street. And they're not even bringing a car, they're just walking to church. So, and you see the shrubbery, it's nicely kept and well taken care of, etc. Well, when we went to the church, we were there in the 2011, 12, 13, 14 time frame. This is a picture at about that time of that same church. You can see the 2 red doors. You can see that the shrubbery has grown up considerably. Now, here's an important sociological dynamic that changed between the late 50s, 60s when the painting was done and now. At the time, an average of 5 people came in each car. Now it's technically a little under an average of 1 person, or 2 people per car. We rounded up to 2, but it's technically like 1.89 or something like that, people per car. My guess is that, for many of you, some of you, there's just a couple, right? A couple, husband, wife, and some of you even come in separate cars, right? He's a deacon, he's got to open up, she's staying late for potluck, so you even come like one person from the same, 2 cars from one family. That's not uncommon. So that dynamic changed from the time that the church was built to essentially now. So as a result of that, there was not enough on-street parking available for all of the cars. So the church, what they ended up doing is back behind. See the trees back behind the building on the right? They cut all those down and they put a parking lot back there. Now you can see on the far left side, you can see one person walking up a sidewalk on the far left side in that picture. Here, let me help. Right here, you see that person walking? Right? So this is a sidewalk that comes up this side here. They cut all these trees down and they put a big parking lot, and then they created a drive here. So now everybody could now drive to the back behind into a really nice, good-sized parking lot in the back. So now that they did that, people are no longer parking on the street. Where are they parking? In the back, right. So because they're parking in the back, they're no longer using the front door. So all of the church members who go there all the time know we don't come in the front door, we come in the back door. Or there's another door, back up. There's another door behind the church, kind of off to the side. On the other side, this is the sanctuary here. It's on the other side of the sanctuary. There's another side door. And everybody comes in there because they park in the back and come in that door. As a result, nobody any longer uses that front door. So what do they do with that door on Sabbath morning? They keep it locked. Now, when you're a new guest coming to church, how do you find the address? You put it in, most people nowadays, they put it in their device. And where does the device take them? Exactly where I'm standing for this picture. So when you stand there, where do you think you enter into the church? That big red door. And when you walk over and go to open the door, it doesn't open. And because nobody comes in that door, there are no greeters on the other side of that door. And you have no idea where to go. You don't see the parking lot in the back. There's no signage to indicate to park in the back. There's no way of indicating where the entrance is. You're left standing like Jesus, knocking on the door saying, "Can I come in?" And it's because the church members, they don't think about it. Because as Andrea said earlier, we design church for ourselves. Church members go where they know where to go. And this is the same for so many different things. For the whatever you call this, the worship center, sanctuary, whatever, it's designed a certain way. The Sabbath school classes, the bathrooms, the fellowship hall. So when I was in one church, the Louisville church, and we had front doors similar to yours, and the sanctuary was straight forward like here, but it was like kind of one of those octagon buildings, right? So there were all kinds of things that were going all the way around. So when you came in, kind of like here, you can go this way or this way, but it wasn't straight. You go that way and then turn. So when you came in the lobby, there were all these door options. And if these doors were closed, you had no idea where to go. So I said, we're putting signage up. So that when somebody comes in and they stand, they can see from this vantage point, restrooms are down here, offices are down here, sanctuary is here, Sabbath school class is here. And when we put the signage so that you can look down the hallway, the sign isn't flat on the door, it actually sticks out, so that when I look, I can see what those things are. I don't have to wonder, what's that door? I can actually see from down the hallway, oh, men's is this way, women's is this way. So we decided we were going to do this. I start putting up a sign. I'm literally standing on a ladder, putting up one of these signs. One of the teenagers shows up. And she's like, "Pastor Tim, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm putting up a sign." It's like, "Why are you putting up a sign?" So people know, where things are. This was like the sign that said everything that was down that hallway. She's like, "Pastor Tim, I know where everything is in the church. I don't need a sign to get there." I'm like, "I know you do, but our guests don't know." And she's like, "I never thought of that." And we never do. Yeah. Signage is important for that. Do you want to tell them what happened to this church?
Yeah, so Kinhorse, we show up. This was, it's hardly just believable. We went to the red door.
We went to the red door.
Yeah, because we didn't know. And I mean, Tim's ministerial director there, we didn't know. We went to the red door, we tried to open it. It's locked. We knocked. Nobody came to the door. And literally, if you're a guest here, you'd probably just say, yeah, I'm out of here. I'm gone. We're persistent, we have to go. And so we thought, okay, well, we'll walk around. So there was a shrubbery. There was a sidewalk, but the shrubbery was outgrown. And it had rained the night before, so we're like walking by the shrubbery. The shrubbery's wet, and it's over the sidewalk, so like I'm having to walk in the grass with my heels, and then the shrubbery's getting us wet, on our legs, and we walk around, and then there's a back door. Okay, there's the parking lot. Okay, that's where everybody's parking. There's a back door, so we climb the stairs to go to the back door. We open it, and it's like a split level.
It's a stairwell.
That's all it is. It's
up
like
or down.
You walk in, and you can go up or down. Of course, there's nobody there. It's like, okay, this is a church, right? And so then we walk around again.
There are lots of cars, but we haven't seen anybody yet.
Yeah, we have not seen a person. We walk around, and we miss the side door because literally we're like walking by. There's no signage. It looks like a utility door. And we like literally walked around the church twice before we finally see somebody go in. Then you go in, there's another stairwell, a little bit of a lobby, but nobody there. And then there's a door with like a small little window, and it's like, oh yeah, there's the lobby on the other side of that to have to get in there. So wow, we had lots of changes. Lots of signage went on at that church.
Yeah, so we love this church. It's a great church, and I just want to qualify this. We did not, we were not mean to the people about it all. We became members of this church, but we were creating a training resource for this, and we decided we wanted to film some short films to illustrate what it's like for a guest to come to church. So we asked the church, listen, we're wanting to create this, we're wanting to use this as an educational purpose, we want to show what it's like for a guest to come to church. Are you okay if we use this church for this? They're like, absolutely. And the church was so helpful, and they just loved it. They had a great time in all the filming. Yeah. And then when it was all done, we showed it to them, and they're like, yeah. Those bushes by like Monday afternoon were all trimmed.
Yeah, yeah.
Signage was everywhere after that. I mean, they just went through and redid everything, and the church just completely 360.
Yeah, it looked amazing.
Hospitable, started training greeters. It was just a complete change. So the church is a wonderful, wonderful church.
Yeah, it just goes back to, you sometimes don't notice things because it's your church, But going on to church and the worship service and the guest, a lot of times we think, church is about us, and how we do things is about us, and that's not necessarily a wrong thing. And a lot of times when I say, well, we need to cater to the guests, that does not mean we water down the message or anything. We are Seventh-day Adventist. Our doctrines are solid.
Amen.
Okay, we don't water anything down. But when people come in, we want them to understand. So we want them, the announcements in the bulletin, we want to talk up front like announcements. So let's just say, for sake of an example, if I say, okay, church, tonight after Sabbath, for Vespers, and then we're going to have after Sabbath, at the school, you call it CGCS. CGCS, I didn't say school, I just said CGCS. The ABC is going to be there. You probably saw the announcement in the Union paper. And there you can get your Big Franks, so come on out. Okay, so now everybody here
I'm signing
knows.
Up. I'll be there.
Everybody knows.
Do they have
here.
fried chick?
Yeah, probably not. Everybody here probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're a guest, what's a Vesper? Sabbath, they might know a little bit about Sabbath, but when does Sabbath end? And, okay, what's CGCS? I have no idea what that means. The union, I didn't know Adventist unionized. ABC, I thought that was a liquor store. I didn't think Adventist drank. And who's Big Frank? I don't even know who that is. So you want to explain yourself. Okay, so tonight at sunset, we're going to have a little get-together to kind of close the evening. We're going to have prayer, maybe a little Bible study, show a little film, something like that. And then afterwards, at the school gymnasium, we call it CGCS, which means da-da-da, and it's located at this address. We're going to have the Adventist Book Center come there. And what they have is they have all kinds of books and different kinds of food, so you're welcome to come out. Just explain yourself. That's all you have to do. Again, we don't have to water down the message. Just explain yourself a little bit. The worship service is about connecting everyone present, members and guests, to God in worship. Since God works through people to reveal his will, it is important that the worship service allow an opportunity for people not only to connect with God, but with each other. A lot of people say, well, we have to be reverent. Okay, so what does really reverent mean? We could get into a big thing. A lot of people say, sit down and shut up. No talking. Really, we're here to connect with other people too. Now, that doesn't mean you disrupt things and, you're crazy talking about whatever. But I don't think it's wrong if you sit next to a guest to introduce yourself, to welcome them, or after the service, talk with them a little bit. Say, hey, we've got this going on, or, where are you from? They could be from Indiana and they're just driving through and they're Adventist. Well, that's great. They're just driving through. They spent the Sabbath here and that's wonderful. You probably won't see them again. But it could be somebody that God is drawing and they live a mile away. We want them to come back. So, just kind of get to know them. But it's okay to talk with people at an appropriate time in the worship service. This quote from Ellen White, never allow the interest to flag. Devise methods that will bring a deep and living interest into new churches. All connected with the church should feel an individual responsibility. All should work to the utmost of their ability to strengthen the church and make the meeting so full of life that outsiders will be attracted and interested. I've been to churches, friends, and I'm telling you, it's boring. It's boring, boring, boring. And I'm not saying, people say, well, we have to compete with TV and social media. You just need to make sure that people are drawn in. And that doesn't mean you have to have craziness on the platform. It just means you have to draw these people to God. These people have to know that this is why they're here and it is important for them to be here, and to not let that interest flag, which means to just drag off. Need that energy.
Finish the quote.
Okay, sorry. All should feel it a sin to let the interest wane when we have such sacred, solemn truths from the living oracles to repeat over and over again. When she says, you should feel it a sin. That's, wake up. We need that interest. We need to have that compellingness.
Yeah, and let me just clarify again. As far as the unchurched are concerned, other Christians or other Adventists, that's different. They're consumer driven, so they're looking for something specific. They're looking for the way the preacher preach or the kind of music, etc. But unchurched people, what matters to them in the worship service is not the music. What matters to them is, was it engaging? Did it feel like people were connecting with God? And did people talk to me? That's what they're looking for. Was it an interesting service? That high church or traditional church or more contemporary, that doesn't matter. What matters is it engaging? Do the people act like they want to be there? Are they connecting with God and are connecting with me? When we do that, then the people will be more apt to return for that. I want to take a moment and kind of talk about follow-up. Follow-up to this. This is a real critical part that a lot of churches miss. So a lot of churches will have a guest registry book. I didn't see. Do you all have one here in this church? All right. Thank you. Heads up. So a lot of churches have a guest registry book. I was asking so that I didn't come across in a bad way. And people come in and they fill that out, and then nothing ever happens with that. God is drawing people to us. So we want to get their contact information so as to let them know we're here to help you. grow in your relationship with Jesus if you want any help. We're not here to spam them. We're not here to send them stuff all the time or junk mail them or whatever. We're just here to say thank you for coming. We are here to help you connect with and grow in a relationship with God. If there is any way we can help you with that, let us know. But if you don't get their contact information, how can you follow up? Keep in mind that there is literally a great controversy being played out in this person's life. God has called them into a relationship with Him and brought them to your church. They might have had a great experience, and they may leave with every full intent of coming back next Sabbath. And they may have communicated to somebody, I went to church at this church, and I'm going to go back again. You can count on it that the forces of the devil are going to do everything they can to divert that person from that means. But if you just drop them a text or an email or a postcard or whatever, just to say, thanks so much for visiting, and we encourage you to come back, we're here to help you, maybe the devil does prevail that week. But they have that contact information, and they know you care, and they are more likely to come back again later. It gives you a chance to pray for them, connect with them there. So you have to somehow get their contact information. Now, how do you get the contact information? So a couple of principles to keep in mind. The first thing is we want to try to treat everybody the same. When a guest comes, generally speaking, they're wanting to know, can I fit in? Generally speaking, we don't want to single out the guest. So I will defer to culture. Right? I'll defer to culture. But since it looks like most everybody here is primarily of one ethnic background, I'm guessing that what we can say quite honestly, that if you have a guest come and you say, are you a guest with us here today? Please stand up. Chances are they'll never come back. Right? So what we don't want to do is treat our guests any different. They're trying to evaluate, can I fit in? Now, I've had people from other cultures say, well, in our culture, we do this. I will defer to your culture. However, I just want to make sure that it's not your Christian culture, but that you understand the unchurched culture when you do that. So just make sure of that. So I know some churches, they would do this thing where if you're a guest, we're going to give you this little sticker that you put on your thing. That's like a little rose or a little something, and that identifies to all the members, guest alert, guest alert, guest alert. Right? We don't want to do that. If you're a guest, please stand. Like, take them some flowers and a loaf of bread. You know, we don't want to distinguish them out. They're trying to say, do I fit in? They already know they don't belong. So what we want them to feel like is you belong. You're a part of us, even though they're not, and they know they're not. But when you say, are you a guest? Please stand. We've just communicated. Here's somebody who's not part of us. And they feel that. So when we get their contact information, we want to try to do it in a way that doesn't single them out. And there are all kinds of ways of doing this. All kinds of ways of doing this. So here's just a quick overview of some ways. Contact cards are great. Right? You might have them in the pews. You might pass them down. People have them as part of the bulletins, where you just rip them out as part of the bulletin. And somebody from up front communicates. If you would like to communicate with us, both church members and guests, it has options for everybody. Please fill that out, and here's what you do with it. Okay, a lot of people are now using QR codes or text messaging. So they have a QR code, and they'll literally say, if you're interested, if you're a first-time guest with us here today, we're so glad that you're here. They don't have them stand up. Just scan that QR code and let us know that you're here, and etc. And there are people who, all kinds of ways that they give free gifts for that. In fact, one of my churches, before COVID, we were actually, as a free gift, we can go to our welcome center, and we would have a gift basket, like for first-time guests, so we would encourage them to go there. We were moving to doing more digital, reaching kind of the younger generation, and so we had a QR code, and COVID hit, so we were just starting to implement it. And if you scan the QR code, the gift that we gave is we were going to donate, I think it was like $5 or $10, I don't remember how much it was now, to an organization in your behalf. And so they got to go to this website, they got to see these organizations that we pre-approved, that we worked with, some organizations in the community that we were partners with, some were our own community center. And we would do that, but it was a way of them saying, we're actually going to help other people by you being here, not just for you get a mug that you're never going to use, but we're actually going to help other people. And it showed them that we actually are involved in the community at the same time. And a lot of people really loved that. But again, COVID hit, so that ended up coming to an end, and we left and moved to our current position. There's all kinds of ways of getting the contact information. We just want to be careful not to distinguish people. One of the things that we did that we found incredibly successful were name tags. So when you came in, everybody just kind of registered that they were there. And it printed out a name tag, you put a name tag on. We would have a couple of church members who were constantly resisting to the name tags. You don't need to get my name tag. And Andrea, she's so kind.
A little. Not really.
And after a while, she would just let people know, it's not about you. Amen. One time, somebody comes up to her, because she was in charge of the name tags. She was in charge of hospitality, which we were doing name tags. A particular person comes up to her, I ain't going to do a name tag. People know my name. And she's like, it's not just for people, your name, but other people's names. And when you wear a name tag, it encourages other people to wear a name tag. Discipleship happens through relationship. And the very first connection of a relationship is learning somebody's name. She's like, well, I don't need a name tag. Everybody knows my name. And Andrea's like, Andrea, she is the lead pastor's wife. She covers her name tag and says, what's my name? And she didn't know. She didn't know her name. So I get it how, and again, this is somebody whose mindset is this is all here for me. And not to say that church isn't for us too, of course it is. But God's bringing people for us to connect to. And that might mean, you know what, we fill this thing out every week. If it helps somebody else who's sitting next to us as a guest, be encouraged to fill it out so that we can connect with them and encourage them to take their next step in their relationship with Jesus. And heaven celebrates because eventually somebody's baptized because you took 45 seconds to fill out some information or print the name tag. Isn't it worth it?
Yeah.
So however you do it, there's all different kinds of ways to do it. Find a way that works best for your community, your context, your people, etc. Most people are pretty open to that kind of a thing now. So find a way that works best for you. But if you don't have their contact information, you're unable to follow up with them. So I encourage you to follow up.
What we're talking about is bookends, okay? You look at, before we think a guest is going to come, we need, okay, maybe our signage needs to be introduced. We saw your sign out here. It's great. But you'd be surprised how many still have the 3 angels messages signs that when I was like 7 are still out there. Maybe update things.
One of the angels is crashing.
Yeah, yeah. Or, signage here, where are the restrooms and things like that? Where is the fellowship hall? Just think about signage or people coming. It would be helpful. There are probably, I think there's other churches besides Arden here. What would be great is for people who don't come to this church, maybe like 2 of you meet with a deacon or something that goes here and goes through the church as a guest, but yet you're still on the same team, right? We're still on the same team. We're God's team. It doesn't really matter what church, what Adventist church you go, we're still on God's team. Hey, I'll come over to your church and I'll just act like I'm a guest. I've never been here. And what can make me think, how could I be more welcome here? What can make things better for me? And then you guys do the opposite for their church, just helping each other. Also in our kit, we'll just talk about, we've got lots and tons of resources to help you go through your church. Does it have this? And then bookends, like, okay, there's going to be a guest. They're coming. How are we going to follow up? How are we going to follow up today, next week, the week after, and things like that. And so you're really just looking at the entire picture. So it's very important. Our prayer is to make you more aware today of just that there are people coming. They're going to be coming next Sabbath. How can you be more aware? Don't be afraid to say hello.
So we did mention we ended up creating the Biblical Hospitality Kit. It is a 5-hour training that we've just kind of did a brief 2-hour overexposure of it today. This is designed for small group settings. and designed for churches. So your hospitality team, your church board, your leadership, designed in small groups. You sit through, watch a 1 hour. We do the presentations. This is a screen capture. We much like we are here today, we present on the various different aspects of this. We get far more detail, a little deeper dive than we got today into each of these practical ways, give far more illustrations, examples. It comes on a jump drive with 5 1-hour training sessions, work participants, guides, so you all can go through and say, how does this apply to us? And then on the jump drive are all of these other resources and ideas and stuff for you to kind of go next level in all these different ways, including evaluation tools and so many other things for that. We really encourage that you go farther than today.
Yeah.
Today, hopefully you're leaving here saying, I want the church that the person I'm praying for to love them when they eventually decide to go to church. And I'm going to start by making sure my church is friendly for when somebody else's other person comes next week or next month or whenever. And take this, that awareness, take it back to your church and say, how can we as a church change so that we are? When Irvin came to the Louisville First Church the first time, not one person talked to him. He went 2 weeks in a row. Not one person talked to him. 10 years later, he fell in love with Jesus because of how the church treated him. Mm-hmm. And we changed that church. Yeah. And we changed that dynamic, and we want to encourage you to do the same. We have brought a kit for every church that's represented here. Pastor Eric has all the kits up here for that, so you connect with him after we're done today. He'll sign one out for everyone in the church that's represented. I don't know how that's going to be done. I'll let you handle that, Pastor Eric. Thank you for being willing to take that leadership in that. That's much appreciated. And I encourage you to take the kit back. Now that you're motivated, go back to if your pastor wasn't here today, go back to your pastor and say, hey, we need to improve some things so that our church is more hospitable. Can we, if your church is only 25 people, can we go through this as a group for prayer meeting for 5, 6, 7 weeks, however long you want to take the process to go through? Can we have our hospitality for a larger church and you have a greeter ministry, have the people in your greeter ministry go through this, have your church board go through this, have your elders go through this, and start asking, what do we need to do so that we can partner with God and the people that He's bringing with us?
If you think about it, what if one guest came per week? One. That's 52 guests that you didn't have to pay for to come. You think about it, you mail out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of brochures for evangelistic meetings. That's a lot of money. And yet guests are coming because God is bringing them. If you just get one a week, look what that can do for your church. It can totally change your church. It's amazing. I want to tell you one last story to kind of end. It's a lady named Krista. I was at our church plant, Tech Road. I'm in charge of hospitality. I wear a lot of hats at that church. I'm an elder, I'm a Sabbath school teacher, I'm a head of hospitality, head of potluck, and just whatever else. A lot of stuff. We have a team of hospitality. We have 2 greeters at the door. We have 2 greeters because somebody comes in, a family, obviously just for our own members, you want to be friendly to everybody, but let's just say there's a guest. We also have signage saying the restrooms are this way, the sanctuary is this way, refreshments are this way. So they have signage, but then we also want to be kind to them. So one day I'm there and I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and one of my greeters from the door, she comes with this girl. There's another greeter there because that's why we like to have 2. So there's another person that's greeting when people come in. Rosie brings Krista. I'd never met Krista. She brings her inside to this other little area to where the name tag tables are. We have 2. We have 2 people working there because it can get busy, right? You have your guests coming, but you also have members, and we're giving name tags, saying hello, loving on them. Krista comes. So I'm doing whatever. I look at the table and I see somebody I don't know. Now, that doesn't mean that they've never been here because I don't know everybody, but I'm going to make sure that I talk with this lady. So all we do with the name tag is ask your name and we explain we're taking your name so that way, we know who you are and you know who we are, because it can get embarrassing. If I meet you and then, oh my goodness, I can't remember this person's name, and then it just gets awkward because you have to ask the name again. And so it's just easy. It's a name tag. Might get their email. That's it. Okay? And so she's there. So I see her. So I can see that she's getting done with that. It doesn't take but just a minute. And so I go over to her. Do I have time? I don't have any time. I have no time for Krista. I got a lot to do. But I am taking time because what matters is Krista. That's what matters. My responsibilities can wait. So I go to Krista. I'm like, hi, my name is Andrea. And she goes, oh, I'm Krista. She goes, I was going to meet a friend here, Eric. Oh, I know Eric. She goes, but I don't know if he's coming. I was like, well, that's no worry. I was like, I'm so glad you're here today. She goes, yeah, I've never been here. Well, welcome. Well, listen, Krista, we've got lots of refreshments. We've got some juice. We've got some bagels. We've got whatever over here. So why don't you come on over, have a little breakfast. There's a seating area over here. She's like, oh, okay, I think I will. So she goes over there. So am I going back to my responsibilities? No. I'm going to find another young adult because she's probably 23. So I go and I find Rosie. Rosie, I have somebody that you need to meet. So I bring Rosie, who's also very busy. And I said, Rosie, come with me. So I'm like, she comes over with me. I'm like, Krista, I want you to meet Rosie. Rosie's another young adult in the church. And so Rosie starts talking to her. Then I can go and do what I'm going to do. Rosie stops what she's doing and spends time with Krista. Sits down with Krista and gets a bite. Rosie already ate breakfast, but she doesn't care. She's going to sit down and eat a little bite with Krista to make her feel comfortable. They sit down together. I go over in a couple minutes. How are you guys doing? Oh, good. We find out that whatever. Oh, great. Oh, Krista, Rosie will help you into the service, which starts in a couple of minutes. Rosie invites her to the service. I'm doing what I'm doing. And what am I doing? Krista. Her name is Krista. Her name is Krista. Krista. Because I've got to remember, because I'm not great with names, but I want to remember her name. After the service, I got lots to do. But what am I doing? I got to find Krista. There's Krista. She comes over. She's getting ready to leave. Krista, I'm so glad you came. I hope you had a great experience. I loved it. It was really good. Well, listen, young adults, I had already grabbed somebody else. Guillermo, come over here. The young adults, they're playing volleyball tomorrow morning. Oh, I love volleyball. Guillermo's like, why don't you come? We're meeting at this park. Krista says, yeah, I think I will. All this stuff. Also, Krista, I wanted to let you know, we're having a service project in 2 weeks. We're going up to Baltimore area, and we're going to be going to this human trafficking area where they help these women. And so if you want to come, oh, I would love to do that. Great. So she leaves. She's got a positive experience. She's had lots of people talk to her. Afterwards, I'm cleaning up. My hospitality team is cleaning up. We have a debriefing. Who did you meet today? Well, I met Krista. Eulalie says, I met so-and-so. This other person, I met so-and-so. We're all talking about who we met. Okay, this person, they seemed interested in, or this person, they live somewhere else, they're passing through, but they knew about us, they just stopped by. Great. We probably won't see them again, we're glad they came. But this person seemed interested, I connected them, there was a family and they had little kids, so I took the kids, to the beginner class and all this stuff. So we debrief. And so then that week, we're praying for those guests. We're praying for those people. Lord, bless them, be on their, may you send your spirit. Bring them back if that's your will. Next week, Krista comes in. Hi, Krista, how you doing? Hope you had a good week. Again, I'm making sure she's comfortable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Krista had to move. She ended up, she was dating a boy there. He didn't come that day. He didn't come all the time. He came about half the time. He came the next week. And he was so happy. He was like, oh man, Krista loved it here. She kept talking about it. She was happy. So then COVID happened. She moved to Costa Rica or Panama. She moved to Panama. But we still had small groups online. We had small groups in person, but during COVID, we were online. She ended up becoming baptized, but also our small group leader for the church. Amen. I mean, it's just amazing. As a young adult.
From Panama.
From Panama. So, it's just amazing. Taking a little time. It really wasn't as much effort as you think. But you plan for it, you expect it, and everybody is trained and knows their roles. And that's what we're looking at here. It's not a lot, it's not hard. It's just being aware and knowing that God is bringing people and to look for them.
People today are really struggling with the concept of love. The definition of love, the application of love is so abused in the world. And to be able to come to a place where people authentically care for them is a revelation of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So when people come and we just give that attention that Andrea illustrated with Krista, or Isabel, Izzy, illustrated to me when I came in, or maybe when you were really treated with hospitality at a church that made a difference in your life, that's a revelation of God. And that's the kind of a care and attention that we want to be able to be intentional about, so that people can see Christ in us and take that next step in their relationship with you. That's our hope. Our hope is that you will recognize it's not about us. It's about what God wants to do through us. And He wants us to partner with Him in this co-mission of preparing as many people as possible for the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Amen. All right, thank you. Let's close in prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity. Lord, you have your people, and you are asking us to love them and to show you to them. That is our job. We are called to be your servants. So help us to be that way. Help us to be more aware. And Lord, you have showed us your grace and your love, and that's what you want us to do to other people. So just help us with that. Send your Spirit to these churches as they take time to look at their churches and see what improvements can be made. All of us can improve in different areas. And Lord, I pray that you will continue to work on people in this town and in the area. You have people that you're drawing, people that are coming next Sabbath. I pray the churches will be ready and that they will love your people. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you all so very much. Just want to remind